Hey everybody, it's Wes. Now, if you watched my last video where I covered all of the recent news and updates about Halo Campaign Evolved, you'll recall that I had discovered the identity of the new ODST character from the new Johnson prequel missions. And the reason that this had come to my attention in the first place was because I was looking through Game Informer's article where they released their new cover art, screenshots, and discussed the game, but I actually found a link to their YouTube channel where they had recently uploaded a video that included exclusive, never-before-seen gameplay from those new missions. And as far as I'm aware, this video is something that completely went under the radar of everyone, because as of recording this video, no one has been talking about this. Aside from the revelation that this ODST character's name is Williams, the Game Informer team also talked about their experiences playing these missions themselves, what it was like going up against the new enemy faction, and even touched on the potential future of Halo's multiplayer experience. But before we get into things, in celebration of Halo Campaign Evolved's imminent release, I wanted to say thank you to the community for all of your support over the last few months and give away a free copy of the game. If you want to learn more about how you can win this, just watch until the end of today's video for more details. And without further ado, let's dive right in. Their video opens with them talking about how they were flown out to Halo Studios to play through all 3 of the new prequel missions, having done so about a month ago. I think at some point in the video they had said, mid-May. And at first I thought maybe this footage was actually their own gameplay, but when I reached out to the author of the article, Brian Shea himself, who was actually really quick to respond and super nice by the way, but he had clarified that the footage that we're seeing here in this video was actually provided to them by Halo Studios. They didn't mention whether or not the build that they were playing on seemed any different than what we're seeing in this gameplay, so it's very possible that they were playing the final build of the game, or whatever build of the game is actually being shown to us here. That sounds kind of complicated now that I think about it, but in reality, what I'm trying to say is that everything that we're going to be seeing or discussing here today is most likely representative of what we'll see in the final product. Also, something I wanted to quickly point out here is that in the gameplay, you can see that there is actually a shield bar present. So that means despite speculation about Chief not having shields because he's wearing Mark IV armor, we now have confirmation that Chief will indeed have shields, which canonically totally works despite what some people online might be telling you. And we know this because there were prototypes of the armor that had personal shielding as early as 2531, and retcon or not, these missions are set in 2551, just a year before Halo CE's campaign, so it's entirely possible that he was just testing out one of the prototype armors, or one that just had integrated shielding. Going forward just a bit, we get to see some gameplay from the player's perspective against the new Berserker Brute enemy type during these missions. And I specify during these missions, because if you've watched any footage from the handful of creators who got an early demo of the game, you would have already seen them go up against these brutes when they used the campaign remix function. But it's just cool to see them in the actual missions or environments that they are officially meant to be in. It also seems like they're going to be deployed more conventionally to their actual role in the lore at this point in history, serving as shock troops or support for higher ranking species like the haloce. And again, I think the device on their chests may have something to do with some type of mind control or stimulants or something to help make them more efficient or perhaps more subservient to either their haloce commanders or, much larger picture, the Minister of Harmony who is in charge of this faction. Now, when it comes to this new mystery ODST character, we knew next to nothing about her, with myself and plenty of others speculating that she might actually be Lieutenant Melissa McKay, a character from the novel Halo the Flood, who helped prevent the spread of the Flood from Alpha Halo. But like I mentioned in my last video, after scrubbing through the footage, I noticed that there were a few parts where, for just a split second, we caught a glimpse of the character's name thanks to a nav marker above her, revealing that her name is Williams. As far as I'm aware, there are no pre-existing ODSTs with the surname of Williams, so she is an entirely new character to the Halo mythos. A bit later on, we see Chief infiltrating what looks to be an armory, or at least that same room we saw during the Operation Meteorite trailer. In some of the various wall mounts, we can see weapons like needle rifles, plasma rifles, brute plasma rifles, and as the footage keeps playing, we even get to see that there are some human weapons present as well, looking like some assault rifles, magnums, SMGs, shotguns, and even battle rifles. Not sure if this is some sort of weapons testing area, or maybe these weapons were being studied, because as we know from the official description of these missions over on Halo Waypoint, there are a number of experiments being conducted aboard the ship. Or maybe these were just confiscated from prisoners of war during the Covenant's invasion of the planet Promise, which we see that the ship is still in orbit of during those cinematics. There's another cut, and then we see Chief pushing into what I think might be a room with holding cells, kind of like the one we see on the Truth and Reconciliation. And as the fight continues, we get a glimpse of some of these captives, with one wearing a broken helmet, and others wearing separate versions of the Marine BDU altogether. And while we already knew this from June's Q&A, the crew here did touch on how the prequel missions will be immediately available to all players when you load up the game for the first time. There are no prerequisites or any need for you to complete the base campaign first. These missions could literally be the very first thing you do. However, Halo Studios highly suggests that you play through the base campaign first so that you can get a feel for the game and understand the gameplay loop. Brian even goes on to mention that these missions may even feel a little bit harder than the base campaigns, and that there are some spots that will be a little bit tricky due to the new enemy types like the Brutes, and maybe even a boss battle with the Minister of Harmony, which he didn't spoil or even say by any means. I just kind of have a sneaking suspicion that this Prophet will definitely be on our kill list. He also goes on to touch on the general aspects of playing through these missions with Johnson at our side. How he'll be fighting alongside us, how he'll have plenty of screen time, make some witty banter, and even be the person to go up and manually unlock doors for the Chief, since he doesn't have an AI like Cortana or Joy to do it for him. And this last point is something that Brian even says is brought up in the dialogue, essentially saying that until we cram an AI into your suit, this is the best we've got, which is pretty funny and totally accurate. But it doesn't stop there, and he also says that there's going to be some dialogue that will make some references to some of the broader Halo media. This is due in part to the fact that these prequel missions were actually written by the author Troy Denning, responsible for several of Halo's novels, and senior franchise story lead Jeff Easterling, who helped in guiding the story. I'm not exactly sure if that's how the game's stories are usually put together, but it is awesome to hear that Jeff is helping make sure these missions are steeped with lore, pulling from the greater Halo mythos. I'm also hoping that Johnson will reference his experience, during the first contact with the Covenant on Harvest, or maybe even his time as an Orion super soldier. We'll just have to see. And I definitely think this is something a lot of people are really excited about, but we are reminded again that the missions will conclude with a space battle. The details of which and the events leading up to it, are not mentioned, but it is a welcomed addition since we haven't seen space combat in Halo since Halo 4, which, now that I think about it, the mission I'm referring to is more like a Death Star, trench run, so maybe the last real space battle gameplay that we've had in Halo would have been in Halo Reach during Long Night of Solace, which will always be one of my absolutely favorite missions in the franchise. Now, something that isn't particularly about the prequel missions, but is still worth mentioning, is that Brian shares a little bit of information from a conversation he had with people over at Halo Studios in regards to the future of Halo multiplayer. Because, as we know, their goal of this remake was to only revisit the campaign, with no plans for additional features like multiplayer, firefight, theater, forge, etc. So when he asked how they intend to hold over the more multiplayer-focused gamers in the meantime, they responded by saying that Halo Infinite will remain their flagship experience until the next major title is released. We don't have any details on when that would be, or if they had planned on releasing the Halo 2 and Halo 3 remake before that, but a lot of people are speculating that at Halo Fest this year, they'll be announcing the next mainline Halo game, or something along the lines of a Halo live service, which focuses on just the multiplayer experience. Given we know that Halo Infinite has no future updates or content planned, hopefully whatever that future title is, it's going to be coming sooner rather than later. Outside of what I've already mentioned, that's really all of the new information that we learned when it comes to the prequel missions and Game Informer's coverage of them. All in all, I am really looking forward to these new missions, and I am beyond excited to learn about this faction and all of the different pieces of lore that have been stuffed into this little mini campaign, which I will be grinding to get some videos ready for the night right after the game releases. And I know I was pretty harsh on some of Halo Studios' decisions in my last video when it comes to the game as a whole, but I do really think that they made the right call by giving us something extra on top of the original story. And quite frankly, I hope that we see this sort of addition with all of the remakes moving forward. And hey, if you enjoyed today's video, please be sure to drop me a like, hype the video, and subscribe if you're new and want to stay up to date on all of the new lore, news, and developments with Halo. I'll say that this is probably the last of my coverage on any news or updates for Halo Campaign Evolved before it releases later this month, unless there's anything, groundbreaking that happens between now and then. But you'll definitely want to stick around because, like I said, I will be doing a deep dive into these missions, as well as an updated story summary for the game, utilizing all of these new graphics, cinematics, and gameplay. And of course, I am a man of my word, so again, as a special thank you to everyone who has been supporting the channel as of late, I thought I'd give you guys a chance to win a free copy of Halo Campaign Evolved. If you guys want to be eligible to win, all you'll need to do is go down to the comment section of this video and respond to my pinned comment, telling me what part of the prequel missions you are most excited about, and letting me know what platform that you'll be playing on. Then 2 days after the video goes live, I'll enter everyone's name into a randomizer and then pick a winner, so be sure to comment early or you might not make the cut. But guys, that is all for today, so I will see you in the next video.